name's Nick. You're watching Harper's Huddle. Shout out to Josh, my cousin, coming up with the name. Um, Gonna try this out, see how it goes. Thinking about maybe 2 videos a week as we're getting more and more closer to the college football playoff. Again, this is going to be a one-take video. I think that's going to be interesting. No editing whatsoever. Just diving right into it. Um, Kind of seeing what different predictions I have for the college football playoff since we're about a month away. I think a lot of people will be shocked by some of these predictions. But there's going to be, there's definitely going to be some facts behind it, some information, things like that, where I think the next 3 weeks of college football is probably going to be the best college football weeks in a long time. It's going to come down to the wire for sure. All right, so with that being said, number one team uh, in the nation that will be in the college football playoff will be Clemson. Um, I'm going to go ahead and say at the end, maybe I'll go with the seeding, but for right now, I'll just pick the 4 teams, no particular order, that will be in the college football playoff. So Clemson obviously is going to be in there. Clemson will win out, and they'll win the ACC championship, and then they'll just go ahead and take care of business like they've done the last 2 years. So one thing that I think is going to be interesting here in the next 2 weeks is Penn State, Ohio State. Now that will be in Columbus, and I think Penn State actually will pull up the upset. I think they will uh, beat Ohio State. With that being said, I'm pretty confident to say that that's going to knock Ohio State out of the playoffs. I really don't see them going in whatsoever. With the Big Ten being as weak for Ohio State's schedule. Wisconsin fell off pretty hard already. Minnesota haven't really played anybody. The Big Ten, they always play each other very, very well. Michigan's not doing too hot, really. They almost lost to small school this year. I can't think of the name of it right now, but Tennessee lost to Georgia State. So who's to say what any team can get beat any given Saturday for sure. But the Big Ten overall is not as powerful as what everybody thinks. So I think with Penn State beating Ohio State, both those teams they won't make the college football playoff. I think one interesting team that we'll see is going to be Auburn. I think Auburn holds the key. It's the gatekeeper. I'm confident in saying that. What I mean by that is Auburn plays Georgia this week, so I'm thinking Auburn beats Georgia. I think they'll do the upset. It's at Auburn. Um, they have something to prove. Gus Malzahn always gets that one random good game a year where he just wins. Last year they lost to Tennessee, but they always have that one big one win in the season, and I think that Auburn will beat Georgia. Now, LSU is going to be interesting because LSU is definitely going to be in the West, representing the West in the SEC championship, and Georgia is going to be representing the East. What I think is going to be funny to see is that if you see Georgia actually beat LSU in the SEC championship, which I think is going to happen, I think you'll see that Georgia will win, and that will bump LSU out. So now you have Georgia with 2 losses. They're not going to be in. The Alabama bias comes into play, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, because their only loss is going to be to LSU, but they will beat Auburn. So Alabama will sneak in the college football playoff. I can guarantee it. So right now, I'm saying Clemson, Alabama, they're going to be in. Now, the next two, it's going to be a little shaky. Just with all the mix-ups, like I mentioned earlier, you have Oregon. Oregon's only loss is to Auburn. So you see, again, that committee is just going to be going around Auburn, and that Auburn is the gatekeeper of this college football playoff this year. It's funny how that happens because when's the last time Auburn's been in control and won the big games? I think the last time Auburn beat Alabama was that miracle kickoff return. I think that's the last time. Um, so Oregon, I think, will sneak in. They'll win out. They got a very easy, favorable schedule. I think they have Washington State. No, they have Utah or Washington State. I can't remember one of those games. If they win that game, which they should, then I think Oregon will sneak in. But it'll be like a like I said, the last week, that final Saturday, where those decisions are going to be made, I think that's when Oregon makes it in. So again, Clemson, Alabama, Oregon. So, fourth seed. So I go back and forth, and I think, you know, is LSU is LSU going to be in? I think the committee is going to let LSU in if they lose in the SEC championship. Um, but then the issue you have is, well, is it just an SEC bias? Which it might be. Unfortunately, the SEC has the most. They make the most money. They make the most pool. So we might see LSU in. One thing that I think would be very interesting to see is if Alabama's only loss is to LSU and LSU loses in the SEC championship. One team that I think might sneak up in the ranks and just squeak in there might be Oklahoma. Now, you could argue that Oklahoma always chokes in the playoff, which I firmly believe, but their only loss is a good Kansas State team. They came out flat-footed. They almost got it back. Unfortunately, I think they lost by 7. Um, so it's going to be interesting to see if the committee wants to do Oklahoma one loss or an LSU one loss. Again, that one loss to LSU is going to favor um, or is going to hurt LSU because, again, Georgia's going to be a 2-loss team. They're going to be lost to South Carolina, and they're going to have a loss to Auburn in this scenario, of course. So it'd be interesting to see what the committee thinks and says. They're going to kind of weigh it and see who's going to be more deserving. So I'm going to lock it in. And again, the 4 in the college football playoff is going to be Clemson, Alabama, Oregon, Oklahoma. I think the committee will swing towards Oklahoma and put them in. The one thing that I'm disappointed in is that Alabama is going to sneak in. Being a Tennessee fan, uh, watching the game this year in Tuscaloosa, all the calls being favorable for Alabama. Watching the games, when they got a holding call, you're actually shocked that they got called holding on. I think it's very interesting. Um, Before I wrap all this up, again, if there's fans out there, is an interesting concept or anything like that. A lot of friends, family ask, hey, why don't you get into sports broadcasting, or why don't you do a podcast or anything like that? So I figured I'd just give this a shot. But I want to talk a little bit about Tennessee just for a second. Tennessee starts 1-4. They are now 5-5. They are one win for being bowl eligible, which they will beat Missouri in 2 weeks. They have a bye this week. Missouri has to play Georgia the last week. They'll play Florida this week, and then us. And I think Missouri they're done. I don't think that we'll lose to Vanderbilt. So honestly, at the end of the year, I think we'll be 7-5. It's going to be interesting to see if we do end up pulling that out 7-5. Uh, it's just a brand new season for us. Um, since the Mississippi State game, we've only allowed 7 points, the max points in the second half by any team, even Bama. Bama, we only let them score 7 points in the second half, and that's by a stupid play by Jared Garantano. But he's coming in as a reliever. He's doing a very good job, even though he has his janky left hand. It's funny because they had the memes with the instructor from Billy Matt or Happy Gilmore, the instructor that loses his hand to the alligator. That's his profile picture. That's what the team refers to him. I can't think of his name right now, but that's his whole profile picture right now because he's got some screws in it, and then he's got a glove, and then he's got a stent on it. So it's just a huge huge hand that he can't move. Um, with that being said, Tennessee shows a lot of improvement, coming from a 4-win season last year to a potential 7-win. They went from 8th in interceptions to 1st in interceptions from 2018 to this year. And they went from 11th in sacks to 2nd in sacks, and that's only with a year with Jeremy Pruitt. So he's definitely turning this thing around. One thing I'm concerned about is the leadership. Now, there are some leaders on the team besides the seniors. However, when those leaders go, who's going to step up? And it takes me back to a time when Josh Dobbs, Jalen Reeves-Maven, those players left. And I remember the first game at the Chick-fil-A Bowl, Tennessee and Georgia Tech. And the whole time, the ESPN commentators and everything like that was who's going to step up, who's going to be a leader. Now, obviously, Jeremy Pruitt wasn't there at the time, but there was very difficult time where there was no leaders. There's no leaders on the team, and that cost Butch Jones his job. He got fired halfway through the season. So it'd be interesting to see what kind of leadership we have once the seniors leave. That's my only concern with them. Um, However, you know, one thing that I love about Tennessee is that the fans show up no matter what. 1-4, excuse me, Mississippi State, we at least put 90,000 in the seats. And there's a lot of schools being 1-4, especially a bad loss to Georgia State, a scrub team. Uh, Normal colleges, other colleges, they wouldn't go see their team. They give up. Last 10, 12 years, Tennessee's been god awful, but mediocre in some seasons. Um, but you know, it's a fun ride. I think Tennessee's on the come up. Maybe about 2 more years. I think we'll see where we'll be contesting with Alabama more, Florida more, Georgia more. So I think about 2 years it'll be a very exciting time. With that being said, I'm hoping Tennessee gets those 2 wins against Missouri and Vanderbilt, and they'll get a bowl game in Jacksonville, the TaxSlayer Bowl, because I'm definitely going back up there again. I went there 3 years ago when they played Iowa in the TaxSlayer Bowl, and that was their first bowl game in like 3 or 4 years. So it'll definitely be interesting to see. All right, well, let me know in the comments down below if there's any other subjects. Again, mainly the show would be primarily SEC, but we'll talk about different college, schools here and there. Um, Throw some ACC in there for you, Brock. Don't worry. And again, as we go towards the college football playoff, we'll see. So again, upsets this week: Auburn over Georgia, Iowa over Minnesota, and really, I don't think there's any more really upsets potential this week. Um, I think Baylor. I think Baylor and Oklahoma play. I'm not sure about that, but my two locks that I would say is that Iowa beats Minnesota and Auburn beats Georgia. All right, again, my name is Nick. You watched Harper's Huddle.